Welcome here. My name is Al Martins, and you're listening to the very first episode of the More About Jesus podcast. I'm here with my cousin Daniel Dunbar, and
Hello.
and we're basically just two nerds who are looking to find out more about Jesus and what that means, what it means to be Christ-like in our everyday lives, or in churches, or society, and in our families, and in our working lives. So yeah, so that's what let's do a bit of talking, just to, I guess, do a Cliff Notes version of who we are. Let's start with you though, because this episode's all about me. So what are you all about, Daniel?
Okay, so like Alan said, my name is Daniel, and a Christ follower, and oddly enough, a mechanic at the same time. That's how I support my family, and that's how I support the church that I attend. And so what I do is working on automotive cars and stuff in Edmonton, Alberta, is where I am located at. And the other thing that I also do and have done for the last 20 some years is actually I've been a worship leader at one of the local vineyard churches that we have here. And so I've been like organizing all the worship and fixing all the sound gear and running sound and singing and playing guitar and playing drums over the
That
last
always ends
20
up
years.
happening, right? If you're the worship leader, you end up having some kind of tech stuff going on or whatever.
Oh yeah, and the more we got into it, right? Because as the years go by, then it's like, okay, we went from like analog, starting to delve into the digital, and then I started uh, recording and editing all the sermons that we do at our church, and now it's even recording the video, and then we post that up to YouTube. And so I have to splice all of that together, putting in the video, and
Yeah.
then adding on all the audio that I record. And so I've also built up a little bit of a studio in my garage. So I no longer work on cars out of home. I actually do a lot of work inside the studio, just editing sermons mostly. But then I also have like band practices in here. And during the first part of COVID that we had, we even had live worship sessions coming out of here because we weren't allowed to use the church building. So we actually had live worship sessions coming out of this space right here that you see behind me with people, and thankfully it's large enough inside my garage that
It looks good.
I was able to have everybody like socially distanced, like for everybody that was in here. I think I had like eight musicians in here. So, and yeah, it sounded okay. We did okay. And it was like, but as things evolve,
Cool.
that's what.
So you're in Canada. I am too. I'm from Saskatchewan. Um, so we're close. Our drive is like 5-6 hour drive or something like that. So we're actually in fairly close proximity, but we're doing this online in our separate locations. Let's, before we get into a few other things, let's just give the reasons for this podcast. So I guess I'll start, and then you do the same. I've been looking for a way to just make my Christianity all about Jesus.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do this for a while, and so I reached out. So I put up on my Facebook, I want to know what, if there's anyone out there wants to do a podcast. But what I had in mind, and I had never really said it in that post, I wanted to know if anyone wants to do a podcast. But in my mind, it had to be about Jesus. It had to be about breaking your faith down to something as simple as trying to be like Jesus, rather than all the complications of theology and looking past tradition and those kind of things that influence us. And it's not about just being overly simple or simplified, but for me it was that. So that's what it was in my mind, was to make my Christianity and more about Jesus than other things. That makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, that's I mean, because I remember seeing your post come up on Facebook there, and I was just like, you know what? I bet you anything he's feeling about the same thing that I am. It's just like I am, I was at the point, I mean, especially with churches being like, we're in lockdown, we're not allowed to go. My church had like pretty much shut down for like a complete years. We just did this whole thing online. And and I was just like, I think there's got to be more to Jesus than just a church building, right? Than
Yeah.
just the 2 hours. 2 hours of week does not a Christian make,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And so I was like, I bet you anything that Alan's feeling about the same way, that we're both pretty frustrated with how things have been over the last while. And this is a good way for us that we can sort of like figure out what's going on and sort of like, I don't know, iron sharpening iron is sort of like, that old proverb, or, because I don't want to like get too much into Christianese type talk either. I want like just, because it's one thing that really drives me crazy is that Christians will just go into their churchy talk, and it just frustrates me because it's not accessible to people that have never been in the church, because we're looking at generations now of people who are unchurched, have no clue. Like they don't know stories of David and Goliath. They don't know stories of Jesus, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like, because the church has just been, stagnant, I would say, for the last while, because we're thinking that, oh, if they come into the door, then we will preach to them.
Hmm.
Nothing about, for me anyway, nothing about actually going out and being part of the community, which I'm thankful that right now my church is actually looking at doing some of that stuff. So hopefully it gets off of the boardroom table and actually comes into fruition. That's still remains to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no,
So
well,
it,
I
yeah,
think that kind of nails it down. That's what I mean. And I'm sure what we're doing this for will change slightly over time, but that's basically what this is going to be. This is
yeah,
we're going to do this every 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about Jesus. One of the things, though, I want to do is, and you brought this up, is before we get into the meat of the podcast, is to be conscientious of how we're working on this in our daily lives. So, how are you like Jesus this week? I'll ask you, and then I'll answer. How did you see Jesus or experience Jesus this week? Something like that, or what did you even learn something about who Jesus is and how that should apply to your life this week? If we keep it uh, like real, then we'll be thinking of those things. I would think so. So, in what way were you like Jesus this week,
yeah. Geez, that's a oh. Which way was I like Jesus this week?
or trying to be
Uh,
like Jesus?
or trying to be. It's like that's probably a better way of putting it, because it's like, oh, I don't know if I was, I don't know if I could be like Jesus at any time. I was like, yeah, I'd like to be able to like just lay hands on people and heal them, or
Oh,
you
no
know,
kidding, eh? That would be awesome.
that'd be awesome. I've just been really over the last, because we've been talking about this, so just picking up like a book like Speaking of Jesus by Carl Medeiros. My pastor's gone through this with us before, and he's actually got one of his other ones too. Reading that, and learning more about that, like the introduction on it was fabulous. It's like, it's basically like he ran a story of like the Christians versus the rest of the world religions and stuff like that in a football game, or a soccer game. And all of a sudden Jesus comes onto the pitch and is like, hey, well, why don't you come and join me? Well, which side are you on? Neither side.
Hmm.
Right. And that blew my mind. Just that statement right there. I'm on my own side. I'm not for either one of these right now, because you guys are missing the point.
Hmm.
Right. And so that just sort of blew my mind. Just that simple statement of you know what? Yeah, I'm thinking, Jesus was hardest on the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So he'd probably be pretty hard on the Christians right now, and how I perceive a lot of churches to be doing things and a lot of Christians to be doing things. right? And not sharing Jesus so much. And so just trying to get that mindset of just being loving to other people and not being a dick.
Yeah,
To
no.
be to be quite
Yeah,
blunt,
no,
right?
no, exactly. No, that's exactly what I was thinking too, actually. And no, that's good. For me, one thing I've been, and from watching The Chosen, where this will come up lots, we've both been watching The Chosen, and
Love it.
I'm
Love it.
overwhelmed by how they have shown the Jesus there to have compassion on everyone, and like it really comes across in his face. And so that's one of the biggest things I'm working on. And so I was able to show empathy and love this week for a friend who's going through a big struggle. And to me, that was being like Jesus, being the Jesus to a person more than anything I've done in a long time. Just being there for a person and loving them just the way they are, and helping them and having empathy. I don't know. I think we under, I don't know, we don't really emphasize enough how much Jesus empathized and cared about people. We take that bit of his humanity sometimes and put it on a back burner or something. It's too vital. I don't know, for me. Anyway, that's how I was. But this segment, I want to do this every time we record, so that we kind of keep in mind what we're doing.
Yeah, and
we'll think of a
growth.
better title for it, maybe, or something. But we'll figure something out as we go.
The "What did you do this week?" section, right? And then, like you said, keeping it real, and then, but it also, like, I think it's really good as well, because then it keeps us in the mindset of, you know what, we're broadcasting this and stuff, like, so I got to be honest about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff. I'm not going to be like, the good Christian is like,
yeah,
how are you this week? Oh,
no.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, no, that's
really it is.
That's not gonna happen here. Yeah, no.
No, I mean, and that's
good. That part of me's broken.
It's like, I'm a broken individual, and it's like, oh, you Christians are a bunch of hypocrites. Absolutely, we totally are.
Yeah.
And we just all gather in one place.
Yeah, no, right. All right, so let's jump into the meat of this thing.
Yes.
We'll have a main topic every time we record, but this time it's going to be just about me, because that's what we decided. No, we figured it'd be good to have to start this thing off with you getting to know us a bit. So this one will be about my story, and then the next one will be about Daniel's story. And then we'll go on from there with different topics. So, what about me? What's your first memory about me? Let's start with that.
Oh my goodness,
that's
that
a surprise.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, our families actually were probably the closest geographically growing up, because I grew up in a small little town called Elkford, and Alan was growing up in a small little town called Grand Forks, both in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. So we were about 6 hours away from each other. So actually, it's kind of fitting that right now we're probably about almost the same to each other. Actually, I think you are my closest relative right now, driving wise.
Yeah, that's
so it's funny how that sort of worked out.
There's no mountains now. It's just straight, it's one big double lane highway.
Straight boring drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but my earliest memory of you, I think that would have to be in the old house in Grand Forks. And, like, because before you guys moved out to the farm, even, right? Because your dad ran the Petrocan, or back then it was the Gulf Station.
Yeah.
It was the Gulf Station, the very first gas station as you came into Grand Forks, if you're heading west.
Yeah.
Right after the bridge there. And yeah, so my very first memory, jumping on the trampoline you had in the ground.
Oh yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. You remember that? That's neat. Yeah.
Oh heck yeah. Yeah, no, I remember all that. Yeah. I've actually walked by that house when I was at my parents' place, because my parents moved out there.
Wow.
As they live not that far from that house too.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I still
remember all
remember
that.
lying on that trampoline watching like falling stars when I was little.
Oh heck yeah, we did that. We did that in the summertime.
Yeah. All
That was
right.
awesome.
Okay. Well, that's a neat memory. Yeah, I grew up in Grand Forks, BC, a little town. Um, as a like my grandfather started the big evangelical church there, Gospel Chapel, which is still going. Which, incidentally, my other cousin and Daniel's older brother, Doug, is the senior pastor of now. Actually, the fourth pastor in that church's history, but which is pretty bizarre. But anyway, that's so I grew up in a churchy church home. Church was everything. I went to church Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday nights once I was old enough to go to a prayer meeting, youth group on Fridays. Wednesdays was like boys club. Once, like when I was fairly little, they started a Christian Service Brigade, and that was me. I was the very definition of the church kid. I led the singing when I was like 13 or 14. Worship back when it was just holding a hymn book and waving your arm. So I've been involved with church so much through my life, and that's why when I guess some of my views started to change, that things got a little hard for me and difficult because I was well, we'll just say it. I used to use the term deconstruction or reconstruction. People, that kind of triggers people sometimes. Maybe I don't know if they're what they think of that, but I've been blogging about it for a while, and basically it's just a pulling apart of all the things I grew up with, and then putting back together in different pieces what I'm comfortable with, and it's not. It's definitely not an easy or fun process. But I was that guy, so it's I don't know. It's almost like a sense of mourning sometimes when you lose some of that stuff. You have a part of you that feels broken after a while. But that's so where I'm at right now was mostly triggered by a bit of a passionate play on my part for women's rights in the church. So I consider myself a feminist, in the sense of I believe women are equal and should be elders and pastors and all the things that men are, and I believe that's the intent of Scripture, even though there's verses that have been taken out of context for years, and I'm not going to do that fight on this channel, and but I think it's what I do is based on the Bible too. So I mean, I believe in equality. I think that when Paul says there is no male or female, it's the overriding part of the church that is redeemed. Like we are meant to be on equal footing, and yet some theologies. So I what I did was take it to a bit of a, not an extreme, I don't want to say, because I wanted to make change or invite change into the church I was attending here in North Battleford in Saskatchewan. And I brought it up before the elders. I warned them. I said in writing and in person that I intend on bringing up something in the extra minute or in the open mic time of the annual general meeting. I want to bring up the subject of women in leadership, and not to discuss it, but I want to propose that we have a meeting, a congregational meeting where we discuss it, where different views are heard, and so we can have a discussion. So I didn't want to, and this raised all the red flags and emergencies amongst the leadership, which are all males, obviously. And so I was ushered to a series of meetings throughout the next coming weeks of and I assured, and so then I went to an actual meeting with the elders before anything happened, and stated clearly my intentions. I'm not even trying to make a vote or anything. I just think we should talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just can we just talk about it? That's all. That's and then other meetings and and then that AGM, and partly why I wanted to do it was so that it was in the minutes, right? Because it's a legal meeting thing in a church, and then they'd have it written in the minutes. What they did before they even started the meeting, they'd made a side note that someone has brought to our attention this thing that they want to talk about, and we're just telling you that we're not going to talk about it. We're not gonna bring this up during the meeting. So it didn't even make nothing.
Yeah.
And so I sat through that meeting quite frustrated. And then over the course of the next year, the elders met, and I guess there was they met and talked about this on the regular, because there was two of the elders that were strong. Egalitarian is what I am, so like they were strong in favor of women leadership, and but it didn't work.
So at least it sparked a conversation within the leadership then as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that would be a good thing.
Sort of, but there was a big set of brakes put on. The senior pastor would quit, basically, is what he was saying, if that ever came about. But the thing is, I just wanted to talk about it. But and then the last meeting I had with an elder, once they had decided to not do this, so it was decided, no, we're not going that way. The reasoning was that we know that if we have a discussion as a congregation, they will want to move in that direction. So they knew for a fact that the majority of the people in our church not only would be okay with women elders, but would probably embrace it. But
why not?
If that happened, the senior pastor would quit. Therefore, they did not move forward with it because they weren't ready to lose the senior pastor. So I, as a form of, I guess, protest or whatever, left church. So that's where I left church. So everyone should know that's where I'm at right now. I'm not attending a regular church service other than online, because I'm not at a point where I feel comfortable with doing a church service as far as my worship and my so I'm a part of Christian community. I am a lot of them, in fact, but probably more than I was when I was just attending church on the regular.
Yeah.
But I do miss it. Anyways, yeah, I still remember the day I had decided to do it. I was leading the singing, and I sang a song that I felt was impactful and stuff. I had been the worship leader for quite a long time, and there were times and years that I was the only guy. There's me and one other lady that played piano or whatever, and then it grew, and so I was a staple in this church, and then all of a sudden I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I thought it would have a bigger impact. Not that I thought I was so big, but I was a visible part of the church, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then I made I think some kind of Facebook post about not going to church anymore, for whatever the reason. And I was contacted by two couples from a church that has 250 some people, and that was it. And as far as I know, people still don't know that I'm not there. They don't ask, they don't reach out, they don't. So I don't know why. I'm not heard about it. I'm so past that. I've gone through a gamut of things, so it's because it's been like 2 years already. But
yeah,
I thought I would have mattered more, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially in like, well, what's a population of the Battlefords that you're in, right?
Well,
2,000.
surrounding area 25,000. I think
Okay, so
it's
it's
13 or
not like
14
small.
here.
Yeah, it's not like small town or anything like that. So you would hope that people would still reach out to you, especially since you are at a, if you've been to a church for a long time and then you just stop going, right? And then
Yeah, over 20
um
years. Over 20 years.
yeah, and I can say that I am a guilty party on the other end of that,
I am too.
where
Yeah.
where I've had people coming and going out of the church like crazy, and then I just lose contact with them. And for a lot of it is because I'm just busy, like trying to do everything that a worship leader or worship pastor does. Sometimes people fall through the cracks, and more often than not they do, which is where my wife would actually, she's more the personable person, and the social, she's the extrovert, I'm very much the introvert.
That's it.
So
That's funny. She's
she
one
would
of the
be the
only
one
the
actually.
first people I knew that was a flag waver. So I'm like, yeah, that's extrovert.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to
She,
be.
so she, my wife, I love her, and she's just like, she's the one that I'd actually like be in contact with the other people and stuff, and so I would get all the information through her, and then if people wanted stuff done in the church, they would actually ask her to ask me to do it. So because they were kind of afraid, because I guess I have this like f off face or whatever, people are just scared of me all the time, and it's just because like when I'm concentrating, because I'm running cables
Yeah,
and
yeah, no, it's a reason thing, I think. Yeah, I
just
do the
like
same. When I was serious and talking to people, they get really intimidated. I'm like, I don't mean to be, just
we got the Mennonite resting bitch face nailed.
yeah, there you go.
It was in our genetics. We had no clue. It's like Brandy was actually going to get me a shirt that said, "I am sorry for what my face said while you were talking."
That's really good. Yeah, no, that's so no, that's I'm the same. I remember I actually just wrote about that on my blog this week about black sheep and how I remember treating
Mhm.
people like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's not intentional sometimes when people left, I just ignored them. But in my heart, I'll confess, I sometimes thought, well, what's up with them? Like something bad must have happened or whatever, and then keep my distance. Because I don't want to corrupt the purity of the church. That's the kind of attitude that I grew up with, whether it was taught me or I
Yeah.
think in most cases, as when you're reconstructing, you realize that a lot of what you've believed comes just from church culture. And sure,
Mhm.
your parents taught you stuff, but your Sunday school teachers taught you stuff, and you've heard sermons, and people take so many different things from sermons and lessons over the years. And then I went to Bible school and
Mhm.
heard sermons and sermons and sermons, and all those things mushed together to create things. But some of it's your own creation of how you've interpreted this stuff over the years. So uh, when you deconstruct, you're taking all that apart, and that's the scary part. That's when you're well. I'll give a good example. So one guy in the church who's famous is Rob Bell, and so he will trigger people because he's basically was branded a heretic the instant he asked a question,
Mm.
because he had seen a tribute to Gandhi or something that was of interest to him, and someone had commented, "Too bad he's just going to burn in hell, or he's going to hell." And
Mm.
for whatever reason, at that point, Rob Bell he just asked the question: "Is that really? Do we believe that?" And of course, where I grew up, that's true. Like if you're not following this set guideline, you are going to hell to burn for the rest of your life. And I had no idea that there was a whole bunch of people that thought different things about the Bible. I grew up very rigid, very
Mhm.
fundamentalist, and
Mhm.
So he was instantly basically branded a heretic and excommunicated. So and I was part of that, right? And that's where my attitude was. So that's part of why it's so hard to reconstruct, is because you remember along the way how much of an ass you were to people when they thought differently or asked questions. I used the term Bible bully. I was a Bible bully and used the Bible as a weapon to whack people over the head with it, and would argue. I mean, part of it's genetics, part of it's just, I guess, how I grew up, but it was my choice too to be that Bible thumper guy that always corrected people and kept them on track and was always ready to pick apart the things. And but yeah, I was mean. But then the big thing that changed my life, this is the big transformation, actually came from reading Romans 12. I got it behind me. Romans 12 too. I can't quite see it in the picture there, but I had a friend's daughter draw me up. She does these chalk drawings with beautiful writing. And it's the verse in the version I grew up with of Romans 12:2 was be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I don't know what I grew up thinking renewing of your mind meant something else. To me, it meant like, I don't know, maybe gaining focus or by some form of osmosis that, as you read your Bible, as you prayed, God would transform your mind and you would have a renewed mind. But then I read it in the New Living Translation, and that's what the version is on my wall. It says, be transformed by changing the way you think. And I'm like, it was like a big giant boulder smashed onto my body, and completely, it was a crazy change moment for me.
Just something that would just wreck you, right? Just a little word change gives you
Yeah.
a slightly different
And I'm like, is that what that means? And then part of me was under the impulse to do like the old me and pull out the Strong's Concordance and get all detailed about it. Is that was the jot and tittle kind of Bible dude I was, right? A complete literalist. But I guess I'm going to credit the Holy Spirit with grabbing my heart at that moment and saying, what have you changed? How have you changed the way you think? And then added the question, do you really think, because I knew right away the answer, was that I haven't changed a frickin' single thing in my life, the way I thought about theology, from the time I was 15, whatever. So we're like, 20 years of my life. Never really learned a thing. Only read the Bible to confirm the things I already believed. I hadn't changed a thing. So then I was thinking, well, I need to change the way I think. If the Bible isn't changing the way I think, it's not changing me into a better person and not changing me to be more like Jesus. And I was getting hit by a Mack truck. I haven't changed the way I think at all. So that was my big moment. And from there, I've been exploring different ideas and learning things, and I'm sure a lot of it'll come up, and a lot of it, as we do this more often, might even scare you to a bit. I don't know, and I'm pretty sure we'll disagree on some things, but I am okay with that. Whereas I used to not be. I used to fight about a lot of those things, and I'm not now. So, and I'm comfortable where I'm at now, but I'll be honest, I still miss church sometimes. But then I go back sometimes, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. And one of the things that broke that I'm still sad about and I still want to reclaim is music. I haven't really touched my guitar since I left church. So for 2 years, I haven't had that part of me. And I'm slowly regaining it, but I'll be honest, a lot of the music and stuff feels so weird to me now. It's not there. And not that I was, not that I was fake before, but I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. And if there's anyone out there that's the same way, make sure you reach out to us so we can, because I want to work this out with people. I haven't been able to talk to anyone about it, to be honest.
Yeah. So like with the music and stuff, like that hits me because of what I do, and obviously you can see gear behind me like crazy. I can understand that because, getting just like, what, that was me before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to return back to that yet. Right. And
Yeah, that's right. It's a part of my.
I can understand that since you're reforming like your thought process on everything, and like how you are trying to think of Jesus and the church and Christians and community with others, which is the church, right? I mean, you're connecting with other people through other things like Love Thy Nerd and stuff like that. I think I see posts that you have on there with them all the time. So great, right? And that's the one great thing about this past year is like, yeah, no, a lot of churches shut down, and it's like everybody went online. And so, introverts like us were like, we've got churches everywhere, right?
Exactly.
So we didn't have to worry so much about it then, right? I mean, the face to face though sometimes is probably what you're missing the most from a church, like just gathering together with other friends and stuff like that, sharing meals. Like forget the church aspect, like the actual church building of it, but it's like afterwards is like you invite somebody over for like borscht and buns or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Like a good meal with friends over borscht and homemade bread, right?
That's
Homemade
awesome.
borscht and homemade bread, like come on, that's like
Yeah.
Mennonite as it gets, right? And that's community, right? Is sharing a meal with other people and discussing life and discussing God and discussing
the weather,
Jesus and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Or anything, right? But yeah. And then with the music, I can understand that because there's a lot of music in the new contemporary stuff when I'm like, really start picking it apart, because I want to make sure that whenever I'm leading, it's theologically sound music and not fluff. And I'm starting to find a lot of fluff.
Yeah.
So, trying to dig in and find out who I like the most right now. So far, David Crowder's making the cut for me.
Oh, Crowder's great. And I'm not just trying to mimic him with my beard, but maybe a little bit. I just thought of that now with the hat and the glasses.
The hat, the glasses, and the beard. Yeah,
I love Crowder, but not that much.
I tried to grow a beard. It doesn't grow good. It looks really bad. It's like, this is the only thing I can grow that actually looks half decent.
Oh, we got to get you some oil for that. Oil it up like Aaron's beard.
Well, my wife is a barber now, so.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's trying to become a master barber, so learning about beards and stuff like that, and so she's got ideas how it might be able to grow. But I'm like, no, right now it's the coloration, because it's really bad. as I'm over 45 now, it's just like, it's like all the gray. It's like you've got some nice coloration and gray and stuff like that, but mine, it's like in like these really weird patches of gray.
Yeah, I know it looks displaced right now. Yeah, no, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it looks really bad. It's like I people give me money on the street. A homeless guy would give me money on the street if he saw me with a beard.
Yeah. You mentioned that you brought up Love Thy Nerd, and that, I'll be honest, that's a community that kind of saved me in a lot of ways, because it was and formed my thinking about what church is. So Love Thy Nerd is founded by some people that have always been in nerd culture ministry. Nerd meaning like comics and Marvel movies and video games and Dungeons and Dragons and all the things that make a nerd cool. We think nerds are cool, and reach out to them. And these people go, well, I think they're just starting to get some conventions going up again, but before COVID, they would go to conventions and be the love of Jesus to nerd culture, whereas a
Nice.
lot of Christians are the ones with
Anti.
they're posters and signs at these conventions saying God hates you because you play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Yeah,
Oh, I can remember that.
yeah.
I
So
remember
yeah,
that.
that's and so well, and I know you played tons of what was the one
Warhammer.
Warhammer as your nerddom for a while, but it
Yeah,
got
that
too
was my.
expensive.
Yeah, is thousands of dollars in that, and it's like, but I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a community, right? And that was the main point of it. And actually,
Exactly.
I did Warhammer with my pastor from my church. And here's the thing is like he played the demon army.
No.
Because he said they were the coolest looking models and he was an artist to begin with, so
Yeah,
yeah.
so I mean, Lovely Nerd is how they do ministry, being accepting of everyone no matter what, and not jamming Jesus down their throat, but just showing them
Yeah.
who Jesus is by loving people and accepting them how they are and building community that way. So I embraced that community. And so even in one of the darkest times of my reconstruction, when I kind of felt alone in all the changes going on in my faith, they sent me. I was a recipient of a gift to the very first LTN con in Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
So I got to go basically for free. I just had to bring spending money,
Nice.
and I went and played board games like every day, all day, and met all these people that I'd been connecting with online, and now I'm like so hook, line, and sinker into LTN. They're basically my church family.
Nice.
But I
That's
still have other church. Like I was talking to my other cousin Jeffrey on the Martin side this summer when I was in Grand Forks, and he expressed to me that like we had long talks, and he said this is church. Like to me, this because he's in the same boat as me. Church is anything. Even what we're doing now is church.
it is.
Not to diminish when people meet every Sunday in those. I'm not against that. I'm just not ready for that version of it yet because I've had
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't like a switch in me. It had been a long time process where I'd sit sometimes in a service and the singing was good. I enjoyed that. Then we'd have whatever 15 minutes of announcements, and then there'd be a sermon for whatever bunch of biblical information that I've heard a million times. And sometimes it'd be interesting, but it never was transformative. But I'd see people around me because I'd been through some pain in my life. I'd see people that I know are hurting.
Yeah.
And it would strike me, what are we doing for these people right now? How is all of this helping this person? Or this, if there's someone here that is under a severe depression and they're on their last rope, if there's a marriage that's struggling for whatever the reason, all those things, what are we doing here in this service that's helping them? And the answer is squat. There was nothing over and over again. And so I would, when I was still in church, try to pressure, write letters and talk to people and say, why don't we do this more? Why don't we, and try to instigate change, but it always kept hitting a brick wall. And so that's why eventually I just thought, this isn't working for me. This is not working for me. Unless we do this really different, I don't think I can come back and pretend that I like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, because that was Jesus, right? Jesus was a compassionate person that actually cared about what people were going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when he healed the blind guy, right? And because his disciples are like, well, whose sin caused him to go blind? Was it his parents or was it him? Even though he's been blind since birth. And you think about it, so everybody in that society was thinking about that the reason that this guy is blind is because his parents sinned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his parents still loved him. That mother still loved her child when he was born, even though he was born blind, right? She still nursed him. She still fed him. She still taught him how to use the bathroom or to cope with life,
Yeah.
right? And here he is of age, which means the dude was like 30 years old and he was blind and begging Jesus, like, and Jesus had compassion on him and healed his sight, right? And then what does the church do then? They're like, it was just, oh, what did they do to him again? I'm trying to remember the story. They basically accused them and they accused Jesus of being the devil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like, well, who did this? Who did this to you? Who did this to you? And then the guy who was healed was like, why? Do you want to become his disciple too? which is like really, they didn't like that answer. And then they're like, no, he's from the devil and stuff. So I was like, I'll have to read up on that story to make sure that I'm accurate, but I'm pretty sure I'm not on the
No,
final
no,
details.
no.
But
That's what
it's the general gist of it. Is
that's
like,
what the Gospels are. Is 4 different guys giving their account.
yeah, right. And it's just like Jesus was just, the church didn't like him. And there's my camera. Yay.
That's all
Yeah.
right.
So Jesus was compassionate
Mm-hmm.
towards people, and so should we, right? Like you said, like you were helping out a friend this week. You were showing Jesus there, right?
Yeah.
Through a crappy situation, right? And I mean, we've had to do that over the past few weeks too for some people, like reconnecting with friends and a neighbor, and then because her and her they were common law, got divorced and they had kids and stuff like that. And then we finally reconnected with her. And then a couple days after we finally connected with her, like I had a really good chat and stuff like that. We didn't do any God talk or anything like that, but just basically reintroducing ourselves and getting to know. She got the news that her ex had actually um, died of an opioid
Oh wow,
overdose.
that's sad.
So yeah, within days. So, and that sucked because of course we're thinking of not only her but their two daughters as well, which are like teenagers now. So
Dang. See, well, you have compassion on that, and that's I guess where that's a Jesus thing. It has to be.
yeah. And I've seen but here's the crazy thing. I see, other friends of hers have been looking after her, like friends of ours, like mutual friends of all of us, helping look after her throughout the whole thing. And I'm like, they don't go to church, but they're showing more Jesus than I am.
Mm-hmm.
How messed up is that? Right here, I am a Christian, who's supposed to have this intimate knowledge of Jesus and stuff like that, and we work in the church and stuff like that. And these other people who don't even go to church are showing more of Jesus to this person than I am, right?
Hmm.
And that's okay. So they're showing compassion. That's the human thing to do. That's inbred in us as a good person to do that. It's just as Christians, we know why, right? We know Jesus is the reason why. We know God is love,
Yeah.
right? And so they're showing love to this person
We
who's a
should be
friend.
better at it, though, is what should be.
We should be better at it.
Yeah, we're not really.
Right. And then bringing people, I don't want to say win them over to Christ and stuff like that, but just be like, you know what, how come you're like this? How come you don't swear? How come you don't, it's one
Yeah.
thing I'm freaking working on is not swearing so much.
That's good. We can do that together.
That's my challenge for myself, is like, because as a mechanic, this is going to be hard. This is 40 years of swearing, and it's not going to be solved overnight. But what makes you different? Why are you compassionate towards people? Why are you doing that? Why are you, and then just be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, it's because I know this guy. His name is Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's exactly what
science
it's
can't
about.
prove that he didn't exist.
Well, I know it's the date.
Atheists have tried.
Yeah,
And they're
no.
like, we can't disprove Jesus existed. Right? There's more written out there about Jesus than there is about Socrates or Plato. And yet they'll still quote them. They'll still quote Socrates and Plato, but there's more written works that have survived the eons about Jesus from the original texts and stuff. So,
Well,
that.
and he came to change the world, so that's one of the
did.
things I love the most about The Chosen is how they nailed that.
Yeah.
This is where I'll end my story, kind of thing too, because it's when Jesus would say, "Well, you've heard it said this, but I tell you this," and it's constant, and that's what blew people away about him. And the common people is that he was calling out all the religious bigots and all, and that's the direct parallel to, for me right now, is that the Jesus I want to be is the one that's calling that stuff out, but in a loving way, but in an open way. And Jesus wasn't mean about it, but he just exposed the crap out of those religious bigots that were all about their religion and not about a relationship with God. And you've heard it said this and that, and so like in I think the first, second, third episode of The Chosen, where they're like, "Man, this is so different," and then Jesus says, "Get used to different." Get used to different.
I love that.
I want a shirt that says that. Get used to different, because that's so cool.
That would actually be a good shirt or good shirt or hat that they should
or a
put
poster or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, get used to different.
Anyway, that's going to be sort of my story for now, but that's going to come out more, obviously, too, as we go along. I just wanted to give a baseline where I'm at. Not like the typical testimony you'd hear in Bible school or in youth group, but there we are. I'm an open book, so. Before we sign off, there's one more segment I want to do, which will be partly fun and partly also a good discussion thing, but we only have a little bit of time left. I'm going to title it Jesus Out of Context. So what we'll do is take a quote and just say it without any context and give a bit of a discussion. And the one I picked for today is from Mark 6:37. Jesus just says, "You give them something to eat."
Was that for me to discuss, or is that for everybody?
For both of us to discuss.
Oh, you want to discuss it right now?
Only a little bit. Yes, I went too long, but for me, this kind of came up because I've been struggling with what I believe about prayer lately, and just the thought of praying for someone who doesn't have food. That's something we would do. Someone's, Lord, provide them with. And I just kept hearing in my head Jesus saying, "You give them something to eat." That's what he told them. Like, the actual context of this is the feeding of the 5,000, right? Like, it's like, there's all these people, they don't have food. And then he said, "Give them something to eat." Yeah. They're like, "How?"
How can we do this? We've only got like 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Well, you give them something to eat.
Yeah, it's just so practical, though. That's the thing. And we don't see Jesus in that way sometimes. So we think, I'll pray for you about it. And how often do we, Lord, be with someone who's struggling? No, you be with someone who's struggling. Jesus says, you be the person that goes and hugs him and says, "It's okay, I'm here with you."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where this is hitting me right now. Yeah. You give them something to eat. Yeah, sure, pray about it, but but prayer doesn't fill their stomach.
Yeah, no, and prayer, prayer is how we talk to God. It's not how we do God's work. It's not us doing it. And that's the thing. That's the, you give them something to eat. Well, this is the chance. You do it. Here's the test. You do it. You've seen me do it. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? It's like being, you know, working with an apprentice. You've seen me do this 100 times. You've helped me. Now you do it. You
Exactly.
install those brakes, right?
Yeah, if you don't show them exactly. You know, I do that, and I'm in the grain business. I've trained so many guys. You show them a couple times, and then you walk them through it the next time. Aren't you going to help? No, I'm not going to help. I will tell you. You can ask questions. I will stop you from doing something dumb and wrecking things. But you're doing all this work by yourself now, and I'm going to help you. And then eventually they can do it themselves. At least with Jesus, he's always with us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's call that a thing. We did it.
Episode 1.
Yeah, and so it's gonna get better from here as we grow, as we learn things. Because we honestly haven't had this long a discussion. Well, since we were kids, probably, or since you lived in my house back in Grand Forks days when you were mechanicking, going to school or something.
Yeah, or even I think the last time we actually sat down and had a long discussion like this was one of the family reunions.
Oh yeah, or when I visited one time for Breakforth in Edmonton, something like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you guys did.
I slept in your bed.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because that's what Brandy and I would do. We would actually give guests our bed, and then we would sleep on the pull-out couch or whatever.
Crazy.
So that's what
we
were doing. I know, we were crazy young kids back then.
All right. So if you're listening out there, and if you have any questions or comments about anything we've talked about us or whatever, you can reach us in a few places. We're on Twitter at moreaboutjesus3. We have an email, moreaboutjesus21@gmail.com. The one I'm most excited about is a Discord server, where everyone's welcome to come, and so we're gonna post links. There'll be links on the YouTube page, because this is going up as a video and as a podcast, which will be available. So if you want to see our pretty faces, you can watch us on YouTube, and you can follow me, Al, on Twitter at Alanon68. Daniel's on Twitter, but he's not a super Twitter guy, which is okay.
My Twitter's like, I have an account. I have 3 followers.
No, that's right. Yeah, so you'll mostly get me there, but I run the Twitter on More About Jesus as well. But that's not going to be our most. Anyways, you could reach out. So there'll be links to all this stuff on the YouTube, and I will post it. We will post it in our socials on like Facebook and that too. Yeah. So reach out. We want your input to be part of this conversation and to inspire some of the other things we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, join the Discord for sure, because I am on that thing constantly. My wife is always, who are you talking to? It's just like Discord, because I'm a moderator on another channel as well. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I have too many channels. I was just telling some of them today. I'm gonna have to break away from some. Yeah. So that I don't get too split up.
Yeah. I'm a moderator on a YouTube channel and on a Discord server. So yeah.
Listener mod. All right, so that's it. Anything else to add? Anything about you, where you can reach you, like sell your studio or whatever?
Let's see. What is my Twitter handle? Jeez, I wrote it down on the document sheet too.
I'm not your Twitter here. It's at Danny Boy Dunbar.
Danny Boy Dunbar. That's right. Not even a number after it. That's how rare that name was. When I made that one. Yeah, Danny Boy Dunbar.
And that's if you follow the More About Jesus Twitter, that there's links to both of our personal ones there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, like I said, join the Discord for sure, because I'm on there all the time. Alan's on there all the time. We do most of our chatting probably more through Discord than anything else.
Yes, yes. Discord is wonderful.
Yeah. So yes.
So that's it.
Join that.
I got us down. My recording is exactly 1 hour, so that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
So,
all right.
Until next time, let's all do what we can to be more like Jesus.
Yes, and reach out to people, be more compassionate, and let's try to be more like Jesus.
Exactly. Amen.
Amen.